Hey, happy Saturday. We have Al's vintage V6. I was going to call it an AV6, but it's not. It's the V6 in Daphne blue. Very light-bodied Strat, so nice, lightweight, good looking, full weight block. Wilkinson pickups, Wilkinson everything. I think it's kind of the slightly older, I'm not sure, but slightly the older vintage brand before it got all iconed and reissued, but I could be wrong. Vintage, no, Wilkinson Deluxe tuners, and the standard or the familiar Wilkinson nut, which they also do a slightly wider one. I think this is slightly wider than standard, so can make that a bit of a pain if you're into replacing it. Somewhere I just put down my plectrum. This, I don't want that one, I want this one, made from a P90 base plate. Okay, so we've got what's actually a fairly nice sounding Strat copy. Bit noisy. It was noisy in the house. Not sure if it's so bad here, but you can hear it. We'll check it once we've done some replacing of the electronics. So I quite like these. I'm not going to do any more of that, but I quite like these things. They're a good start point, a really good start point. If you can find them at a decent price, then you can have fun with them. Now what we've got going on here is, oh yeah, I'm going to take some close up with this thing if it's still it's going to behave. Let's put the power on. Yeah. Okay, any chance of power on? Ooh. That's the wrong button, isn't it? Where's power on? That's power on. That's the right one. Align yourself. Make yourself go horizontal. I can't find which one does that. Another one of this. I'm hopeless. Sorry about this. It's all part of the thing. I don't want that. I want to go out to that filmy thing. DJI. Come on. Yes, thank you. Loading. The things we do for an alternative view. Connect a go to camera. Device connection. So thank you so much. Enable Bluetooth on your mobile device. Don't tell me. Lordy. Hold on. Sorry about this. Off. On. So there we are. Back out. Back out. Go to that one. We have it. Thank you. Device connection. Camera. Thank you. Well, okay. So we'll start with this. Let's go red. Go. Yeah, so we have the vintage, slightly non-fender but not bad shaped headstock. This is a bit of a gloopy vintage logo, not hugely distinct, but it's fine. Then we have the plastic, slightly thicker than normal nut. We have reasonably good condition frets here. Nice, typical vintage style fingerboard, which I like. Any of the Encores and the vintages have good fingerboards in my book. We've got wear on the frets there, which we can hopefully take care of. all the way down here. There is a crack down in the other side of the pocket, as always. Now we've got the Wilkinson single coils here, which aren't bad at all, and they're set pretty low. I guess that must be how Al likes it, but we'll leave them there. And we've got a very, very stiff tremolo, which is kind of working in, well, sort of, it's done up too tight, so we'll take care of that. We'll set it in the fully floating mode, and then we have slightly off-white knobs and whatnot, all good. We have the, where's the crack? Let's have a look at the crack. There we go, that's quite a big one actually. Sorry, the strap is getting in the way. This is what happened now. I'll take off Al's strap and I'll leave it behind and have to send it separately like the last time. Sorry. So yeah, we got this crack here. We'll get in close as we can without losing focus. Not bad, not the end of the world, but it is fairly long. Under there, you'll also see at this point that we've got a shim under there, trying to get the neck into the right sort of position. You can see, oops, you can see it's not perfectly doing the job. We've got the full weight vintage Wilkinson style tremolo block, nice solid steel thing, so there's no reason that shouldn't work well. And then up here, we keeping in focus, we've got the Wilkinson Deluxe buttons, sort of small button tuners, which are great, all on a single strip. No trouble there. I would have personally preferred them to be split post tuners. I think they're a nicer, more effective unit. Anyway, so we've got the basic standard thing, but the slight problem with this is it's got a very high action down here. It's got a bit too much neck relief, and it's got a too high a first fret action down here. I don't know how well you can see this. I don't want to zoom in, but as about a millimetre or possibly even more. So we take care of that. We'll go on the basis of if it ain't broke, we won't fix it. So I won't replace the nut unless I need to. Otherwise, I'll go with a bone replacement. So what Al has sent up with his order, side order of electrics. So it's basically a full rewire. Get everything out, change all of this out. But some quality pots here. 5-way wiring kit for vendor strap. Nice, good quality stuff. Emerson style pots. I don't know if they've got a name on them, but anyway. So that's the game. There you are. There you are, looking at me in your beady eye. Will this focus? Oh, yeah, it will. Look at that. Amazing. While we're at it, I'm going to wipe all that stuff off. We've got a couple of things going on. Had a router Thursday going on here the other day, and I've got not here, down at the salvage place, and I've got these. Basically, I did the chambering, so I was able to stick this carved cap onto this walnut bit yesterday, and now I've just reconnected with the just what do they call that? Hogged out some of the material for another trip to the routing place, which we'll do in a couple of weeks and get that finished. Meantime, down here we've got another one coming along. This is a slab bodied one, and that's looking pretty cool. It's getting ready to go, and then we have a couple of cheap Chinese necks, which I've been modifying the joint down here to get them just right for what I'm doing. It's a bit non-standard, and you can see there's one here that's got a built-in angle on it. This one did too, but I've removed this. Anyway, yeah, so that's quite good. We've got a leftover one here that came for an SG that came slightly twisted, which we might try and rescue one day. And that's just a few of the things going on. Anyway, I'll switch back to the mainstream view. Doink. Let's try and switch this off. Go away, please. Thank you. Can't get to it. And let's switch this off. No, that's the wrong button. Power. Hey. Get that out of the way. Right. Okay, back to the wide angle. So, I'll do a couple of measurements here. We've got, I don't know, did I bring it in? Yeah, we've got a load of new cloth, so I can use one of these. Yep, that was my routing plan. So, yeah, I take it away nowadays and get it done down at my friends at the salvage place, which is great. because I don't have to rush, and I'm not having to worry about upsetting people nearby, which is probably the best way for all concerned. So actually that work I did the other day was 4 hours of non-stop routing, so it shows how much it takes to get done. These are CTS 250s, 3 of them, all good stuff. Switchcraft jack, bit of cloth covered wire, and a 5-way switch. So all fun, and we'll see what the shielding is like in there, if there is any. But I'll take the measurements off here first, take the details, take your vital statistics, just to see kind of how weird and wacky it is. It's all going to change because we're going to see what the shim is doing and why. But at the moment we've got 3 mils and 2. 3 and 2, and we've got no, I'm not going to measure this, but a bit too much. I'd say we've got 0.4, 0.5 relief, last fret, high E, low E, and over here I will attempt to measure this. The high E isn't so bad, but I'm sure I think we've got probably over 1 on here, but let's have a look. Let's go to 1 straight away. Yeah, just slightly over 1. So 1 millimetre first fret on the low E, which is pretty rubbish, but I'll just set them all to the usual target. So straight away I know that I've got some, I've got to set it up with a different action to this, but nothing kind of major I have to do with it. Now the thing I'm going to do is while we're at it, and we're going to use the current setup. Oh, this is a Wilkinson, isn't it? We're going to see if it needs any fret leveling before you can take these strings off. And it doesn't matter about the underlying setup, whether it's using a shim at the moment to get there. If I take the action down to where I want it in both places, flatten the neck out a little bit, then I've got the level on the neck, and I can then audition the frets for buzz. And what I'll do is fret level it, and then we'll check out whether this shim is actually needed or not. So the first thing I want to do is, first thing I can tell you is I think these are pretty certain these are screwed down too far. So I'm going to just back these off 2 turns each. This tremolo shouldn't be pushed down on its front edge, because that cants the back end up and stops it working. I'm not sure if it totally is, but I have a feeling it is. Just going to back it off just in case it is, just to allow it to pull back, and I'm going to just make sure that I can get it back flat on the deck now under the strung tension. Again, my favourite part, screwing in screws that you can't get access to, but hey. So now this is where I'd want to start anyway from the perspective of setting the tremolo. So putting the tremolo claw in this far right now is a mighty jolly good idea. And I'm going to send it in quite a long way, and we are flat on the deck. Now we're going to be out of tune, so with this, what we'll do first is there's a few things, and they have to kind of interrelate. So the first thing I can tell you is the action's wrong in both first and last fret. So let's just capo off the first fret and pretend it was near to where we want. Now this is going to be too low now. We've created a too low action here. But I'm only doing that so I can see whether we're using these we can get anywhere near a sort of ideal target action. If not, we'll have to rethink and consider what that shim's doing. But actually, as it stands, yeah, we can get down to 1 pretty easily. So that will give us close to our correct action. So I'm just going to bring these others ones down to pretty much meet it, just perhaps sit a little higher to respect the radius. We can do it more in a little bit more detail in a minute, but I'm just doing what I would call the gross settings at this point. So bring these down, and we should sort of get a 9.5-ish radius all the way across. Now you can tell I'm eyeballing it at the moment. I'm just doing the gross adjustments. You can do the fine adjustments in a minute. So down we go. Okay, and then a little bit down on this fella. Okay, and then what I'd do at this point is I'd just revisit these, and I'd go one just under. Because what's going to happen is when I go to the correct action here, this is going to come up a little bit at this end and a tiny bit at this end as well, but nothing major. So if I'm close to or fractionally under here, it'll be fine. A little bit too low. Same with the business of judging the amount that the tremolo cants upwards and the amount the action changes when you set the tremolo in the correct range for floating. That's a little bit of a surprise that isn't included in some of the best methods I've seen. Okay, this is now too low, so we'll just push this up a bit more. Just over one and a bit more on this one. Okay. Now again, at the moment, I'm not really too bothered about tuning or anything. I'm just looking for the approximate action. Okay, that's about right. Now this will raise it a little bit more. So the next thing I want to do is adjust the relief on the neck, and from my original feel of it, I think it's too curved, so I'm going to use a 4mm adjuster, and I'm going to flatten it out a little bit. So that means tightening it up. So I put a couple of 1/8 turns into that. I can feel it turning, but under resistance. What I'll do now is I'll get a tune off the amp, just to tune up that. Okay, that's flattened it out nicely, leaving about 0.2 of a mil. Now the thing we have to adjust here now is these fellas, nut slots, which are properly out. Now this is plastic, so it's never my favourite material to adjust. I'm going to use, if it's don't broke, don't fix it. It's not a bad material to use as a nut. The only reason I don't like it is it doesn't cut very well, which is why using one of these makes the job a lot sensibler. I mean, I don't know whether Wilkinson would call this graphite or not. Some people do. It's a black solid plastic. I don't mind whether it's called graphite or not. What I know about it is this stuff that they use doesn't cut too badly. So I'm aiming for 0.3 with a little bit of a round out at the end using the correct size file. So 16, 12, 24, 32, 43, 69. Okay, 24. So I'm just going to, I can say I'm making a bit of a notch to begin with, but I'm just using this one to round out at the bottom of the slot. So that feels like it fits the string nicely. If I need to cut a little bit more, I'll use the jeweler's file again and take a bit more. So that's a big notch, but we'll get rid of it because it's all surplus above the string. That's on the mark. I'll leave that right there. Like I said, much better plastic than other spongy types of plastic. Sun Mustang used a much softer, or Encore India used a much softer plastic, which I hated using. Now this one actually not too far off now. We've lowered the action down here, so I'll just be careful about the degree to which I adjust this. Kind of widening the slot to begin with, but just getting to the mark, which is good, and we'll just round this one out. So I can either leave these V-notch like looking slots at the end, or we can sand back the nut, which kind of makes it look a little bit grey, and we have to get it quite polished up if we want to make it look dark black again, but you know, it's not a big price to pay. I think this one's just about on the mark now. In fact, it's a fraction under, but it's workable, so we'll leave it right there. And now we swap across to the bass strings, so that the D is way too high. Where's my thing? Oh, there it is. So again, quite a bit of cutting needed on this one. So just at this point I just make sure I cut down evenly so I can lower the action, but it takes a lot of surrounding material in the notch, which is fine because we'll get rid of it. But it's a little slower to cut because it's taking the sides as well as the going downwards, if you get what I mean. But it's doing the job perfectly, and it's a billion times quicker than trying to do that with the little Japanese nut files. So I now use a combination of these two to get where I want to get. Yes, thank you. That's pinging on the, what do you call it, that thing, string tree, which I would replace on a guitar like this. In fact, I might do it, and knowing Al, I'll just add it to the bill, because it's a much better improvement on a guitar like this, and this will play so much better in a minute. It'd be a shame to leave that pinging on metal up there when it doesn't have to. Almost on the mark. So just a little round out here. So I was just thinking when I was starting this guitar, one of these days it'd be fun to just do a one where I just fly into it without any explanations of where we are, and just see how long that takes. Just not rushing, but just, you know, going at it without any just pausing. But that's not quite today. Friday, yesterday, Brexit Day, was a very good day for me. Nothing to do with Brexit, I won't even go there, but more to do with, we got our accounts in, tax returns in good order. We got our car MOT'd with no work needed. Yay! And also confirmed a commission with a successful UK fine artist, visual artist, I think is probably a better word, and he asked me to make him a guitar of his design, which he's made several others in the past, or had several others made, but he wants this one. The others had varying strings and varying scales, or kind of made up scales, so it was a kind of atonal in lots of interesting ways. So this one we're making is a 6-string, and it's an unusual shape, and it's not going to be to everyone's liking at all, but that's not a problem. Still a challenge in doing a commission. for an interesting artist, interesting project. Not bad. A little bit. And that is nice and low. In fact, let's just do this up a little bit to its normal target settings now without pushing it too far, because if this plays and doesn't really buzz anywhere, then I think this deserves to not get unnecessarily fret leveled. I mean, it'd be, on one hand you could say it would be nice to remove the play wear down there, but it's always been my mantra not to do that just for an aesthetic sake. It's not a good expenditure of fret metal in my book, so I don't tend to do it, and not unless somebody specifically asked for it, but I would advise against it. It's a cosmetic, really. I mean, there comes a point where if it gets clicky and pingy, then maybe yes, but as it stands right now, it's not close, it's not really doing that. So okay, so now I have everything set at the right height. It's still very low, still pretty pleased with it. Well, that's just choking out on a couple of notes there on the high E. I have to say that is still pretty low. Let's not be silly about this. Let's put this to the 1.2 that we normally aim for, and no less, just because we can. There's no point overkilling this. There's 1.2. There's 1.2-ish. About right. There's a couple in there, that's all, and that's dead on the action that I would aim for. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a moment out. I'm going to go and check with Al. This will change a little bit when we take this out or readjust this, but that will come out in the final wash. But this feels very nice at the moment. I'll do it if he wants me to level it and get rid of those marks as well. There's quite a bit of wear on a little bit of corrosion here on the fingerboard, so this thing's been played a lot down this end. I'll just double check and then we'll see how it goes. Okay, we're back on. Right, did my checks. We're going to do some fret leveling, but light and careful, and we've got the action set up where we want it. So this will be a case of, let's see if we can just clean up those top little notes, bends up on the high notes. While I was waiting or sending messages to and fro and waiting for Al's reply, I was able to load the pick guard loaded for my, no, not this one over here. Oh yeah, what do you call it? I call it my honey burst strap. Anyway, so that time not wasted. So let's just get right on into the game of getting this leveled and without any further ado, as they say. So that's a pretty good shape right from the off. Probably because the last guitar I set up, I had the same neck relief profile dialed in, I would expect. Okay, so basically I'm going to do some careful, very precise leveling with 400 grit, I think we're working on here, and just looking to basically clean up all the notes, cure those little bends at the top, and if possible get rid of the most, if not all of the whatchamacallits down there, cowboy chord grooves. Good, I'll go with that. And with sort of choke outs on the highest bends, what you're really looking at is usually unevenness somewhere in the G track or the B possibly, but usually usually it's in the G track where it shows up. So kind of don't expect leveling in the E track or the B really to make that much difference, but I'm doing it just to make sure we've got all the notes playing properly prior to testing, doing the G track and then testing the bends after that. Nice, very good. Okay, here we go. I'm going to calibrate now for the G track and make sure we get those nice bends sorted out. Just a tiny bit more curvature needed, but only a tiny bit. And that is a fraction too much. It's very, very sensitive, this. So what I'll do is I'll probably, I don't know time wise, whether I'll finish the electrics on this tonight. I've just done a whole set Strat electrics, but it's quite fun anyway. Strats are much easier because everything sits on the plate. Okay, so this is the telling one. This is where we hope to release the bends. Now, I don't chase after trying to get rid of the cowboy chords down at this end. That's not my primary sort of objective at this point in time. So if I am able to clean those up, then it's a bonus really, but not going to cost fret metal everywhere else in pursuit of just getting rid of those things. Now what I'm noticing is there's a couple of lower frets up this end, which will probably not helping the bend situation. Perfect. And that's cleaned up those little zizzes. We'll have gotten rid of most of the cowboy chord grooves, but not all. But you'll hardly notice by the time I've polished all of the frets out after this leveling. But it'll seem a lot better. Okay. So here we go into the D track. Now once I've done this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to file down that nut to reduce the V notches and see what it takes to bring it back up to a nice darkish shine. It's that kind of plastic that you'd have to probably mechanically buff it. Yeah, probably need quite a lot of hard work to get it shiny again, but we'll get it we'll get it as near as we can. But it's the function that's most important rather than the look. This is sort of just slightly secondary. And the amount of adjustment on this is really small, so it's very, very hard to describe how much or how little, and it is something that you only get an idea of after having done it, gain some experience in doing it. I think in some ways one of the hardest parts of getting this technique under your belt, if you're going to use it, is knowing when you've got the right truss rod. There's a low fret there and there. Yeah, it's very hard to describe it. I mean, I send in my ebook, I mention how to or what kind of truss rod to use. But they can vary from one to another, even the ones of the same design. So finding one that goes completely flat when you need it to be, and which curves in a very sort of smooth, linear, progressive fashion is quite difficult. I think maybe I got lucky with just finding this one, which came out of a strat neck. But to be honest, it's more likely than not likely that any decent truss rod will behave that way, because that's what they're made to do. I mean, they're not made to be used as fret levelers, but they're made to bend in a consistent and reliable fashion, so there's no reason why they wouldn't. So there's a couple of low ones on the edge here. Maybe somebody's lowered them in the past, hence why they're showing up there. But that's fine, that's done. Right, so look at that. It's quick, but it's still precision, and it's this experience in knowing what this tool's doing that I guess you can't instantly replicate. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the file and sand, if I can find which one, sand this. Sand it? Yes, file it, that's the word. File this back. And these are, now we're looking at the sacrificial strings, so we can afford to scrape them as we do this. And so this is about just reducing the amount of unnecessary material above the strings. And there's quite a lot of it down on this side. And what we should get afterwards is a fairly smooth nut that goes all the way across. So you have to sort of gauge how far you can go down. It's not difficult. So you can see that in a way all of that material that's coming off there is surplus. It's unnecessary, and it sits above the string. And I can see there's still more to take down. So just get this nice and flat to the level of the strings. And when we get there, then we just change to the finer file. Something, I don't know what that was. So you can see it's loads of material gone. Now we're kind of parallel, or level, I should say, level with the strings. and then a bit of filing out, rounding off this corner piece here. Don't need all of that sharpness. And then just a bit of smoothing off, get it rid of the scratches. Okay, so that is a reshaped nut with only as much depth in the slots as is needed. It's much tidier, and the nice thing is, because of the solid plastic, it works really well. Okay, that's everything I need from these strings. They've done their work, so now I'm going to take them off. It might be worth keeping these as a sacrificial set for another day. Well, I'd like to take these off. Anyway, we'll get these all off. So the next stage now is to re-profile the frets. I'll do that with the StewMac reprofiling tool, or crowning tool you might call it. And then we'll get ready to polish it out. While I'm at it, we'll have a look, while the strings are all off, we'll have a look at the neck joint. I know that Al was worried exactly, but he was concerned about whether this crack was stable or needed. Oh, so I'm so sorry, Al. Did I bash you? Concerned whether it was, concerned that it was stable and whether it needed anything. But it's really it's as good as it's going to be. I have made videos talking about these cracks in the neck pockets of strats, and they're very common because of the shape of the right angles involved in the pocket and the force of necks pushing into tight joints. Question is, can I be bothered to straighten these out? I suppose I can. So they're very common because of the mechanics of the neck pocket of the strat, and a lot of people, there's different views on it. You know, you find some people will say, oh, there's nothing to it, you know, they're all strats have them, they're no problem at all. And quite often, obviously, these will be, you know, you find that people that say that will be sellers. Now that doesn't mean it's not true, and if you try and think it through and talk to people who know finishing and people who know wood, then what's true is that the finish, the polyurethane finish or polyester based finish, don't know exactly what you call it, is very brittle, and I've seen it enough times in doing other things like putting screws in tuners and, you know, screwing tuners to the headstock and so on. Dried poly finish, as is used on guitars, is very brittle, can be very thick and glassy and brittle. So it's absolutely wouldn't be any surprise that a joint under pressure, and if the paint is under pressure, there's no reason to think that that wouldn't crack, as it, you know, it often does when the wood underneath the material shrinks or is stressed. Now sometimes it might be that it is caused by a knock where the neck is put under strain, but the neck's probably more elastic, I suppose you could call it, more springy than the finish, which is actually hard and glassy. And so very often you could imagine bashing a light bash on the headstock on one of these things, and it wouldn't be a surprise to find that the paint splits, but the wood just takes it, soaks up the knock and doesn't cause any problems. So I think that it's true that that many of the cracks in these necks are finish only. I would concede that. I think what that can danger sometimes of leading to is where people kind of try, the sellers, I suppose you could say, try to minimise it, and sometimes to the point of not mentioning it. I think in the case of this guitar, I think the seller neglected to mention this, and you might find on, you know, on asking somebody, they might say, well, all strats have got them, you know, there can be a not blasé, but a slightly complacent attitude about it, because, well, many do have them. But the point is, if you are selling a guitar like this, you absolutely need to tell the buyer this is this is the state of play, and the neck has this crack in the finish, and that, while it may not mean that the guitar is in any way compromised strength-wise, it certainly does mean that two identical guitars, but for the crack, the one with the crack is at a selling disadvantage than the one that hasn't. And so, if if you don't tell me about the crack, then as a buyer you leave me at a disadvantage, which isn't fair. I shouldn't have to experience that. Okay, so we've got a shim in there, which I don't think is entirely necessary. Somebody's gouged this down at the back, which might be the reason why they've put a shim in. So this pocket isn't even to begin with. It's been chiseled out, which probably means that when you put this thing in here and push down, there's possibly some sort of little gap, maybe a little gap at front. I don't really know. No, possibly. It probably sits a little bit flat, maybe even tilting back. I'm not sure. So I think this is an attempt to fix it. It's a bit on the broken side, I have to say. It's a half a degree shim. I mean, I brought those down with that shim in place, and if we took the shim out, arguably this would sit lower, in which case the only question is, can we take these down enough to reach the lower position neck? Looking at the this, what do you call it, the little dig out here, it's not a very pretty state of affairs really, and what you'd ideally want would be a flat surface for this. Now if this was my guitar, I would potentially put a little thing in here, I'd possibly plug those with plasticine or something, and then I might put some resin in there and squash it flat to get myself a flat base. It's not that much, but it is about 1/2 mil. I think if you were going to use anything in here at 1/2 mil, I think really you would only want the back part of this. I don't think it needs the front part, so I'm going to trash this, okay, because we're really just filling in a hole, and that hole is, if anything, see, look, it's just falling apart anyway. We probably just need to boost it out. There's probably not going to be anything left of this by the time I finish. It's so flimsy. And it was kind of knackered anyway. But it probably needs only a single shim at the back there, just to lift that up. Just to give this, in fact that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to leave that bit in the back, and actually just to have a feel of it, we can put this back on now and do it up. Looking at the crack, it's absolutely standard. I wouldn't worry about it at all. So I think just having a filler in to take up that space is probably the best bet, and I've guessed it at half a mil size. Nobody on the planet would actually ever tell the difference between a shim wedge and a step wedge. Oh, sorry, a wedge shim or a step shim. They are undetectable. It's just it's just people know, they know that there's a shim that's a wedge and they feel better about it. But you know, this doesn't need to stand anymore at the front, it needs to just be supported at the back, which is what it's doing now. So this will very, very slightly change the action, but nothing that this these adjusters down here can't cope with. So what I'm going to do now, before I possibly take a break, is I'm going to take up the crowning file and just recrown these frets, and then tape it all up ready for polishing out. And then after that we're really dealing with changing out the what's it. In fact, why don't we do that now while we're in the fun zone. What I won't do today is I won't close up on this. We'll close up on the soldering, and maybe we'll do the soldering tomorrow. There's a worn out one. Replace one of those. I think one of the reasons for taking this off now as well is probably so I can get in there and we can shield the cavities, because this thing either isn't grounded properly or it's very noisy for some reason. Not ideal. So we'll take the jack out as well. Okay. A bit flimsily attached. I've got this undone at the moment, so I'm not going to, just for now, I'll recut that in a minute. Oh no, don't tell me you can't get this out without the... Look at this, it's one of those you can't get out without taking the neck off. What a pain in the... what's it? Oh well, holding it all together. Stay. Okay. Oh, see, that's broken that up. So this maybe sometime tomorrow we'll fill this with some resin or something, because it's a bit of a messy situation. Okay, so that goes out to what's it? We'll just snip that off there. Okay, so oh, wow, somebody's put some conductive something on there once, or something. That's its original colour. I like the way they go into this slightly yellowed colour, but we'll paint around that just now for fun anyway. Yeah. Let's have a look. So first of all, these are smaller than necessary. So if I'm going to do anything with some resin, what I want to do is fill these little holes up, because I don't want resin getting through here. As it happens. And what I'll do, sorry, what I'll do is I will, prior to doing anything, I think what I'll do is when I'm in the house I'll go and get some cling film, and cling film makes a, or cellophane, some gentle cellophane, makes a nice material to fit in here, so you can press in the shape and have it flatten out underneath the neck heel, but it has to be carefully done. So what we could do is we could just I think we probably need to clamp it. So it'd be good if I could get very liquid stuff, but I probably can't. So what do I want to do? I want to use, actually I want something that isn't this neck. That's what I want. I wonder. Sorry, Maurice, somewhere here, I can't find it, lives a spare neck. Where's it gone? That's the question. Where did it go? Pink neck. I haven't burned it, have I? Is it here? Ah, it's here. Oh, I thought I'd used it for something. Two twisted necks. One of them is an encore. So this would be useful just as a thing to clamp in place. Should be just about slightly too big. I want the flat surface, that's all I care about. Maybe this one will work. That's too big. Could be right for all I know. That might work. All these odd-sized leftovers. That possibly, that probably would do the job of squeezing that flat to fill that up. Okay, right. And so, what would I do with this? I'll put that in, squeeze it flat, put this in. Put that in, cut it level. Hello. Okay, so that's given me two little fills that will keep most of the resin out of there, and I can drill them out anyway, so that's fine. I wonder if I've got any stuff here. Might as well do this before I go in. We've got soft cellophane. Let's use a bit of this. Hey you, stick back out. Ah, look at that. After all of that trouble, it's now stuck up. Okay, stick up, damn it. Okay, right. So the idea would be to get some. I don't need all of this stuff. This is surplus, but I need a container. A spare container. one of those and one of those. Oh, they're always useful. Tremolo screws. Keep that handy. Right, so the idea would be we want to get ourselves a bit of stuff into here, and we want it to make, basically, we want it on here. We press this on there and clamp it. So I don't mind clamping this, that's fine, because it's a surplus. So we just need that to fit in there when the time's right. So we'll just cut that out there, like that, and cut that out there, like this. And off the back here. Okay, so we'll put that in there when the time's right, and we'll push that on there, and should just about fit in, a little bit tight because of that extra material, but that's fine. That's basically, see, I don't want this to get stuck to there, obviously, so we're going to stick it down. We've got to stick it on the top so it doesn't, in a way cling film is sort of thinner again, but it's going to go like that, keep this out of the way of that. Let's try a bit more of the famous Gorilla tape. So we're going to go, we want, sorry about this, just fiddly stuff, we want that to go in there. That on there, and bring that round there, on top of there. Not perfect, but it'll do. We'll keep all of that stuff out of there, and then what we'll do, just in case there's any spillage, we'll put this stuff over here. Got any sharpness left in this, please? And over there, and then this over here. And then a bit of this on here in case it overflows, which I doubt very much it will. Highly unlikely. Okay, so there's my masked off area. I'm not going to do anything with that just this second, because first of all, this is blunt. It's rubbish. These damned blades don't last 5 minutes. Thanks, Morris. Not what you need. Right, that's that out of the way. Okay, so technically we have an outlet here, and here, if any gets to the front, it will go down this hole. We don't mind because it's completely a huge great hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up what is effectively going to be a small amount of this stuff, because there's hardly any left anyway. So I'm going to squeeze and squeeze. And that is that. Run out. So I'm going to steer it up. I'm steering up. Now I'm not going to use too much. I just need just enough to actually, you know what? I'm silly. We should let this come out here, shouldn't we, really? The reason why is we do want some overflow, but not too much. Let's put that bit of string on there. Tape. That's what I mean. Okay, we need a clamp. Okay, now here's the fun bit. We get our wet stuff in the back of this pocket. Right. Now, what we don't know is how much, big, and so on, how this fits, and there's not a lot of ways of knowing unless we have a look at flattening it through. Just kind of sloosh it across. You can get a sort of sense of what's sitting where and how much is left over. I think that's nearly enough. What I then would do, get this fella, put that in there. Makes it a loud noise. Then we get this and we put that bit of this we hold this over the edge here like that, just there, and put that down on there. Give that a jolly good squeezing and make sure it's in straight. And with a bit of luck, that will give us a flat neck pocket. There you go. Right, I rather think that's it for today. I'll leave that set. Actually, I can pull it back up and do some conductive painting as well. Again, you can see it's a guess. I need some more. It's a guess. That's all it is. But it's a what's the word? A reasoned guess. It's a careful guess, and it's, the aim is to not have to use shims from here on in. That's the idea. Right. What I've got? Paintbrush. Oh no, where's the paintbrushes gone? Okay. Here's one. It's going to take a while with that one, but that's all we've got right now. So what we can do, while that's doing its thing, we can get the good old stuff. See how much is left in here. It's pretty good. I bought this stuff from Guitars and Woods this time. Normally I buy it, or I have bought it before, from Bare Conductive, but what I found about their stuff is that it really stayed wet or liquidified forever, and so it would always come off on your hands when you were trying to put the guitar together and so on. Quite amazingly, this, although it's very watery, seems to dry quite handle proof, which is really good. Hence, it will be my choice from now on. and that's the guitars and woods people in Portugal. I mean, it is quite thin to apply, but it seems to be doing all right. And strats have a big area to cover, so it's not doing all that bad. Again, so these two things will be dry tomorrow. Now, of course, if that flat surface isn't how I wanted it, then I can always sand it back to where I do want it. So it's not the end of the world, but it's a permanent kind of shim rather than keep having to use a temporary one. Ooh, what's that? Something coming off in there. Okay, then we can have some fun painting the sides as well. But you know, fun for starters. Again, it does seem to go on really easily. It's not very thick, but it tends to hold once you put it on. So we can keep on doing it. And of course it needs to touch the, it doesn't need to touch that much, but it does need to come up and over and touch the conductive plate on the back of the scratch plate, which there isn't one. Ideally there would be some foil on the back of there, which we can put some on as well. And as long as we make sure this shield touches that, we should be alright. It's a bit of a difficult subject area because unless you're using a very particular tape with conductive glue, which I'm not 100% convinced that even exists. I imagine loads of people will pretend it does, but unless you can find a tape with conductive glue, then you're not really going to get a continuity, electrical continuity throughout the whole shield, which means it isn't going to actually be a shield no matter how nice it looks. But so the point here is we're trying to get some shielding going, and we're going to do our best to shield it. Technically, I suppose the argument would say I ought to also paint the back of the scratch plate, but I mean the thing that's funny is that you're trying to make a shield and the front of your pickups are exposed to the radio frequencies anyway. It's not like they're shielded in any way, so I don't really know how effective this whole thing can be. I suspect that a hum cancelling dummy coil would be a better all-round idea, but hey. And so if you get to a point where you want to sort of connect up your tin foil we've got, we can just paint some stripes down here to make sure that we get some contact. We do the best we can with it. Right, leave that dry overnight along with the fancy shim of resin. Put that in there. And yeah, we'll leave that there. Oh, do you know what? For fun, before I go in, I think what I'll do is I will just put some tape on the back of here. I've got aluminium tape. It's quite fun. These are nice Wilkinson pickups. I know that Al's used them before, the WVN classic thingies. Now we are going to rewire this. Most of that's okay, but new switch. Question is that too deep for the thing? But we'll worry about that afterwards. So we can make this, right, we're pretty much replacing everything on here, so to make this easier, we could remove all the pickups, well, I can work around them. I was going to say, if we removed the pickups, it would be kind of easier to do the whole thing. Yeah, why don't we? That way we can. sort of I've jumped ahead in time, as you know. So these are a bit tight fits. Nice pickups, struggling to fit in the holes, which will make adjusting them a bit difficult. Blimey. Pickups are so fragile when you look at them. Look at that, what have they done? Brilliant. Actually can't get this out with the knob still on. Holy moly. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant design. Thank you. So, very tight fits indeed. I think I spotted a problem straight away, Al. Yeah, why this may be buzzing the way it was. There's a wire missing here. I think we might have to redo it. Aha. Unless I'm completely stupid, I think that's the problem. Right, there's a S-ton of wire that we don't need, so let's just get all this off. We're changing all of this. I'm going to look at that up close tomorrow, but I think there's a broken wire. That's why. No, funny, this, no, if you bought it like this, Al, I'm going to take a picture of this because that's why it's noisy. Remember I said I felt it was noisy before. It could be why it is. To be honest, I don't. Holy cow, I don't rightly know. Come on. Thank you. But there appears to be a wire missing. Now technically, I don't actually know what the consequence of that is, but we'll find out sooner or later. Could well be a ground wire, which is why it's sounding noisy. Well, lucky you got your refund, a partial refund I should say, back, and I think you didn't pay a ton for this guitar, and your partial refund was, I think, generous enough, or fair, so you've got most of, well, you didn't pay a lot for it in the end. So, let's see. I'm going to take a picture of this very close up. I'll just do it as a video actually, if I can get close up. Handheld video, but let's first of all separate these things apart so we know what we're dealing with. Stop bleeping at me. Okay, and these are labelled middle, neck and bridge, and I think it's the bridge that's the problem. Yep, look at this, right. Okay, now I don't fully know the total details, but let's zoom in. Here's my assessment, Al. Close up on the middle pickup, and what you see is, in the light, you see the two tiny wires continuous over the top, there to the solder point around the back, over the top there to the solder point around the back, and likewise you can probably see it even better on there, wire going over the top to the back. Now bridge one, solder's fallen off, wire's gone. Appears to be a remnant of a bit sticking out there, but I think it's broken over the edge, and you can see there is none there. Let's put it under a bit brighter light, see if it shows up better. In this light nothing's any good. Wire, no wire. Let's see if I can take a picture of it now. Here's the zoom, one-handed zoom. No, can't do it. Oh, for crying out loud. Could I zoom? Thank you. There you go. Right, that's it for today. Okie dokie, so that's it. Let's figure that out. I think we should be able to repair that. I don't have any wire of that gauge, but I could pinch some off another dead pickup somewhere. Alright, see you tomorrow. Hey, here we are, next day, evening. Time for some welding, you know what I mean, soldering. So I just thought I'm going to just bring this up close and give you a better, closer view while I get this soldered together. Now we've got the new hardware and stuff. I've checked out the pickups, and actually, believe it or not, they're okay. What has happened on this bridge one is it's shed a little piece. Normally the wire goes through this hole, and it's gone through, but and it is soldered and connected to the output. It's just broken off here, which apparently is doable. I mean, it's survivable, so it's not the end of the world. Anyway, meantime, I've made up a jack plug wire. I have produced a grounding cable, of which I need a small screw, and we're ready to go. So I'm just heating up the soldering iron, and I want a tuner screw for this affair. It's very messy in here, as you can see. Now I've got enough of those. Right, so I'm just going for a standard, he says, standard, what are we going for? Standard Telecaster, Stratocaster is the word. What I noticed about this is it was non-standard wiring before, so I wondered if that had something to do with it. I'm not sure if it was the bog standard wiring that it came with. I don't know if it's been altered. It's not the end of the world anyway. So we get some various bits out in this messy world. We have all of our stuff over there. What I'm just going to do is load some solder onto the tops of the pots, various places. So it's going to be a straightforward setup. Come on, soldering iron. Okay, let's have a look. 3, 2, 1. So one is bridge, which is the yellow. The bridge is going to end up there. Oh, this is this is 2 tone pots, so we're going to go out in the normal way. The only thing I don't like about this shaggy stuff, if it frays at the ends, and it's slightly annoying. can't see this to access it very well. What I don't like is the way that's pressing against the inside of the switch, so let's just get rid of that, unless we can stick it out a bit more. Thank you. And cut off the excess. Low, middle. Okay. So you can see this is very slow and fiddly, but that's what wiring is. That's why I don't normally record what's going on, because there's nothing that spectacular to see. Thank you. What I don't know is whether these pots will fit in this cavity at the moment. That's one of the slight worries about changing sizes. This was a cheap import switch and a small mini pots, so changing upsizing those can run into fit problems, so you end up having to do various chiselings and widenings and things, which I should have tried that out before I came and did this, but hey, I didn't, so that's how that is. Spin that round. I'm going to put these on here. One of the things I did was I cut short these wires to make them fit. Sometimes some people, oh Lordy, can't grip. Some people are very keen to preserve the original full length of the wire. But the way I look at it is that since this is only ever going to be fitted, or most likely ever going to be fitted to a Strat style guitar, then the size or the length of cable is never going to need to be longer than this. So it's kind of straightforward really. Keep it small, keep it short, and then you get a much tidier business going on there. Okay, what are we doing? Okay, so we've got some different things here, and you've got some what's-its, you know the things I'm talking about. Capacitors, 4-7. I've got another one here which is a slightly different one, but it will do. I need a couple of different bits of wire, solder spots. Some people get really uptight if you use too many spots of solder for your purposes, and frankly the way I look at it is it doesn't matter what's on top of the pots as long as it does the job. So I'm just keen to make sure it works more than anything else. So what we want with this really is just to bend there and there. That's it. Just about there, I would say. It's difficult to get the heat into this. Not really gone in, but I'll just do this bit first and then come back. And help it on its way. Keep that little bit of extra wire because we'll use that in a minute. Not much room between these two pots here, so I'm just going to try and get this fitted in. Shorten this a little bit. The trouble with having done this, put a load of metal foil on the plate, it's actually very hard to see when you're doing stuff because it's firing back quite a lot of dazzle in your face. Right, there's my, that's it. Now there's a bit of extra wire here supplied by Al. We'll use some of the black on this. Going to connect up these three pots. I know they're probably connected up at the bottom, but we won't take any chances. I don't like to. They should be connected through the plate, but it's always a bit of a guesswork. Hit and miss. I think this is cloth around a solid core, I think. Yep. Which is easier to use. Let's go through here and here. Here to here to here, cut there. So what we're going to do is, I haven't sanded out the frets yet, so we'll get this wiring done, we'll polish out the frets, put the neck on, get this fitted up. We should be ready to go. Thing is with this, if this is difficult, it's nice to leave the outside material sheath shielding on this, but if you can't get this stuff off, then you can always use just a simple piece of bare wire for this ground connector between the three pots, because that's all it's doing. It's not actually in anyone else's, in the way of anything else. There's no danger of it shorting out or doing anything bad. But sometimes you can get the cover off. Sometimes, yeah, just about. Come on. Thank you. between them all. And on our volume we need to ground this end lug. To put that about the way. So we'll ground that on top of. Actually, you know what? No. Yeah, we'll do that one on top of there. Snip off the excess, solder it at the front of the lug, snip off the excess, thank you. Okay, now with the switch, do you know, I forget which one. Let's just have a quick look in a minute. Standard strat, which are the two lugs. Strat, worrying. Thank you, that helps. Wiring diagram. Strat wiring diagram. Come on. What kind of switch have we got here? Let's have a look at the standard one, thank you. We go bridge in the front here, 1, 2, 3. Ah, that's interesting. That's not even connected up. Thank you, that's not so good. Should we just use a reliable one? No. God, this is what's so fun. Just trying to remind yourself of something bleeding obvious. You can never find the thing you want. Oh, God. No. Is that the basic one? Yes, thank you. No. Well, yes, no. That's using a common single capacitor. I'm not doing that. I'm doing two. God, could you make it any harder? Holy cow. It's funny, isn't it? You're looking for a bog standard setup and you cannot find a single normal one. Would this be it? Yeah, right. Okay, cross on that. M1 to 1, M1 to 2. End 1 to 1, end 1 to 2. Let's use some blue wire. Right, thank you for that. So we need a crossover. End 1 to 1. Just double check this. That 1 to 1, yeah, let's do that. That 1 to 1. It's going to go to there. And 1. What am I talking about? 1 to 1, small. 2 to 2. 2 is 2. Yeah, it's funny if you haven't done this before and you go looking online, it's so difficult because everything you see kind of confuses really. There's very little. Well, not very little. There's tons of information, but the hardest part is working out which, if anything, is conclusive, the right stuff, you know. So much information, and immediately so much of it is conflicting or different. Let's just get this tinned because it's not playing games, behaving. Yeah, so I think if you get to a place where you've kind of got a fair idea, and you can use the internet to just skim through and find something that you know is relevant to you, then it's quite useful. But if you're starting from complete scratch, it can be pretty unhelpful, unless you've got a very I don't know what the word would be, a very sort of detective brain. You're able to sift through and figure out what's what. And of course, you know, the internet doesn't have a real way of prioritizing information, telling you what's really credible. I mean, I know Google tries to do that. That's sort of Google's rating or ranking system is supposed to try and figure out how to select information that its algorithms know or can decide is hyper relevant for a user's inquiry. But unfortunately, it's very difficult. It doesn't get it right, and B, it's incredibly difficult for it to know, and so it presents all these thousands of apparently credible versions of wiring systems, none of which would help you, all of which would confuse you if you were starting afresh or starting new in this world. But hey. Now, like I say, the concern I'll have from this point onwards is whether or not this will fit into this thing over here. And it's no guarantee that it will. So we need to hook up the jack. Not yet, otherwise we'll be unhooking it again pretty soon. Okay, so let's just move a couple of things out of the way. Bits of metal you can go out of the way. I'm not really going to do any close-ups with this since it's not very helpful. Now, I think what I learned before, oh yes, we have to have the neck off to fit this. So let's just double check. Oh no, we're missing a wire. We're missing one wire, the jumper across. A couple of wires actually. Yeah, before I try and fit it in, let's get those done. Okay, we're going to go a jumper across from there to there. Let's put some tin on those. And then we're going to want one across. Where do we want one across to? No, we don't want one across anywhere. We want one out to the thing. I know what I mean. From the jumper point out to the input lug on the volume pot. So we'll get two together in the same hole on the switch. One in there like that. Trim that one. So what I've done is I've bent all of these over as far as they can go to give it as flat as possible, in the hope of making it fit, but we shall find out in a minute whether that's the case or not. So here we go, this one down in there. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill that up first, because these aren't going to play. The first one is, we want to get this one in. Not very good grip just yet. That's pretty lousy. It's not the prettiest fit up I've ever done there. Let's just add a bit more solder to the mix. Make sure they're good and proper fitted. And then this one comes out to there, which you can't see by a million miles, I know, with a bit of upward pull. And then what we're left with is the jack connection and the what's the other one? The bridged ground and tremolo earth, tremolo ground, which we haven't got sorted yet. We've got the bridge ready over there. Let's use a bit of this for what we can have this for. This is going to be for the tremolo ground. So we've got the shield ground here, tremolo there. So two earths. That's quite a long one, but we can fit it in. Right, so really what we'd end up wanting is probably these two together, twist them, load them, I mean, some people would prefer to make a common ground sort of union somewhere outside of or away from the pots. To me, I'm not really that bothered where it is, just so long as it does the job. So we've got this one and we've got one more, and that's going to go to that pot. So let's have this one on top of here, just an extra bit of solder to do the job, piggybacking on top of the capacitor ground earth. Come on, down you go. Jolly good. Okay, so there we have it. Jumpers and here we have our delightful grounded, or shielded cavity I should say. Now here's the fun. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to place this little cherub back in here and send this up through if we can. We might need to put a little bit of tubing on it just to keep it together. See if we can. It's just going to go kind of uphill, so it's a bit fiddly, but it should work. There we go. Right. A little bit of a tight fit now because I've got a fair bit of this wire in here. We can bend that over and send it down that way. So if we can fit that in, and then that's taking up too much room, and that could probably go down that way. Question is whether or not you can get the jack socket in, so we'll just try that out for a minute before we commit anything. Sometimes it just doesn't like to do it. It's fine. Okay, so that's there. That's there ready for hooking up. Then we need the ground, which is going to sit. This is going to be fun now to get this to stay in place. So here we go. So we've got the tremolo claw, which usually goes where? Oh no, it comes through there. I was rather hoping that'd be something else. Right, okay, that's fine. Let's make another hole for this next thing. We are going to put stick our, what do you call it? Ground, shield ground into the wall here by virtue of this little black screwdriver and a correct sized thing. This is where I find the whole game gets a bit fiddly around about this point. So we've got our thingy. Actually can't see very well at all. Where was the hole I just made? There it is. So let's first of all, God. Let's just give it a little grip first. Right, now take it out and then do it again. So this is the, sorry, the shield ground. I don't know why my speakers are popping and hissing and making stupid noises right now, but they are. Okay, so the idea with this is just get this done up nice and tight to the shield like that. It's a nice contact, and then we've got this one here through and out the back here, which is for the what's it tremolo claw, and then this one now we want to get fit into here. We want to go in kind of sideways through here. I'm basically going to shove that all the way through. access to the earth part, which is not playing ball at the moment. Come on, thank you. We can double that back then over the top of the pot. So, first bit, on goes the positive. Just trim that back again. Okay, and then bring back this earth on top of this pile here, and we'll add a bit more to the party. And now I've run out of things to hold it down with. There we go. So that's the jack output grounded, or input actually, whichever way you like to look at it. And now here's the telling bit. Does all of this fit in here with our extra big pots and whatnots? Damn, I hate when this happens. It's very tight at that end of things. Right, why is that not going in there? Okay, so that doesn't, basically, that is too narrow here. It only accommodates a small mini pot there. Well, okay, that's not true. We can get one in if we sort of push it down roughly, push it down roughly, and then we're actually, I think we're a little bit tall on this modern. That's what I hate about these things. Ow. And people often ask me for these upgrades, and you see how they're sitting there now obstructing the whole deal. Okay, so this really doesn't want to work. So the first thing is this is actually, unless I put something to shield this, that's going to ground out before you know it, which is not what we want. The problem just being is that this guitar is not deep enough in the body for this kind of switch, and it's a common mistake to make. I'm being dazzled at this point in time by all the chrome and silver stuff. Okay, so that should cover off all of those. That's not the best sealant cover. This is too small up here. I don't know if a little bit of adjustment's going to help, but we have no choice really. Take a little bit off here. It's all hidden stuff, but look at the chipping it does. Look at that. Holy cow. get there. Almost. Shaggy. Now, I need to get the vacuum cleaner up in a minute because this won't be easy to clear out. That's not going to be deep enough just yet, but we'll get there. So this is the price you have to pay for fitting bigger pots, you know, and it's always, if you leave it this long, as late as this, to check, which I did, which is a silly thing to do, you end up having to do it with everything kind of in situ and ready to wire up. So it's never an ideal, it's not ideal that way. So if I'd have thought about it more clearly, I would have got this bit done earlier. Lowered it back to the same as the bottom of the pickup cavity. Good, lovely. Let's get the vacuum on it a minute. Okay, what we'll do now is we'll just double check our fixtures. We may still be knackered by the height of the I know we might just be in on this. That might just work. I was going to say by the height of the switch, but I think the remaining challenge is, well, I think we're just about workable. Let's, before we put that on and commit to it, let's do one thing to be sure. Let's check the basic functionality of the pickups before we do anything else. It's not grounded out on the bridge yet, but volume. It's got no stiff. A little bit of why is there a little bit of bleed over on that? Right. Well, first of all, that works. It doesn't explain to me why we've got a little bit of bleed over on these two. Switch position, bridge bleeds into the other one. Can't see any reason unless there's something wrong with the switch. I don't see why that would be. It's all clear and clean. Out, out, across there, down, out to there, into there, across to there, ground, out, 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 out. That's out to there, that one. That's okay. It's just a little tiny bit of live extra something going on there. Okay, I'm going to do one more time. I'm going to open this up and lean this off here. Just one more time. Just one more. And I'm going to put the last bit of black paint on there. And I'm going to close it up wet, because otherwise it will just be better carry on and get on. So I'm just going to get me a little bit of extra soaks up into the wood pretty well anyway, so it's not a big deal. Cover this up here. We've got a nice grounding lug here, and that's nice. We'll do all that. Now this little bit of wet stuff will stick nicely to the underside of the tin or the metal shielding anyway. Sometimes what I do, by the way, is if you're not sure about, if you're unconvinced that you're that these things are stuck together, what you can do is you can take a bit of this stuff and you can draw, basically, this isn't very thick actually anymore, it's kind of had its day. Oh no, Morris, not now. Not now. You can get a bit of this, and this isn't very, it's not going to work very well, it's too thin. You could run a, if you had thicker stuff, you could run an extra, draw effectively an extra line around this whole thing, but I'm not going to do it on this case. This is excess anyway, all of this tin foil is shielded in the back there, which is the main thing, and there is some connectivity. But yeah, if you had more thicker material, a less liquid material, you could draw across all of them and make sure they were all connected together. Now what I can't see right now very well is the places where the screws go in. Sorry, this is very close to you, so it's going to sound loud. So I'm just going to, for a minute, put in a couple of locator screws, I guess. Let's just wipe off a bit of this sticky stuff that's got run amok. Right, and then the next thing I'm going to want to do is, with this closed down, let's close it down on here where it's just about in danger of being a little bit too deep. Then we'll press it down now, and we'll see if electrical connections are all good, because it's now, while it's closed up, that we run the risk of things grounding out when we're using a pot that's a little bit too big. Come on. Okay, so that's just for now. Let's put this back in. Hello, Morris. Just don't come up on here. That's all I beg of you. Right. Fine. There we go. Okay. Now I have a feeling I had to do this first, didn't I? Because there's a lip over the top, so that was kind of critical. Right. So what I can do now is I can do a bit of tidy up. We've got this basically sorted. We can do a clean up with a bit of solvent just to get some of this, a little bit of that stuff, whatever it's called, you know, the stuff, I'm losing my words, degreaser, no, solvent. We'll just get the last bits of conductive paint gone from wherever it landed. So we can put this down out of the way and then just concentrate now on the neck, or if we want to do it the other way, we can put the neck back on first and then get into doing the setup once that's on. So let's try that bit. Okay, so we're going with the white tip. We've got our 3 knobs. We can put those on out of the way while we're at it. Volume, tone, I never really like fixing things down like that because you're putting pressure onto pots which are sort of prone to breaking. So we'll do all this up, we'll get the neck on, and then we'll be into the polish out and then the final setup tweaks. So these are not gripping very well. Not bad, but it's just on the turn. It wouldn't, in short, there wouldn't take too many more fittings on and offs to wear them out completely. Right, here we have the business. Now I'm just going to take that one off there because that's going to get in the way of putting this neck back on. Get these out of the way in a second. So on it goes. Oh yeah, I haven't got the springs on yet. So now I'm putting this back on. Sorry, you won't be able to see very well. This has now got the that ditch filled in, and this time no shim, just the holes filled in. Get the right screwdriver bit in, do this up. These definitely go in at an angle, these screws, so I don't know what's happened when they drilled the holes for this, but it isn't very good. It's definitely a Friday afternoon, I think. Right, let's have a look. Looks to be all in order. Right, I'm going to put this out of the way. Let's put the springs back in here. Get these bits out of the way. Switch. Oh no, I need a bit of that. Hold on. Let's do this bit while we're at it. So this attached to the claw point. Thank you. The thing with the tremolo claw is it doesn't heat up very well. So even if it's got a little sort of tag lifted up, which is designed to help you get attached, but it's a bit of a devil. So loading your bit of wire with some solder is a help. But my God, is it resistant? Okay, so I'm going to get that off, this out of the way, that in there, these glasses in the granddad's soldering department. Okay, so this is so boring, or has been boring, but then we get this ready and load up the springs. One. This is hard to get to that side. Two. 3 out the middle. Come on, in you go. Right, there's our springs in place, pulling back as we want them to be at this point. And then the last thing we'll do before I park this for a minute is just stick some tape down on this end piece here, ready for sanding out. I'm not going to do that on camera because it's just long-winded and boring. That's not so good. Let's try that again. And what I'll do as well is I'll cover up the Wilkinson logos on pickups, because they typically, oh no, these aren't the metal ones, but I'm still not, no, I trust them. But if they've been the metal ones, they need covering too, because they tend to come right off as soon as you touch them with a bit of tape. But in this case it's fine, they're printed. Okay, so I'm just going to add an extra bit of tape around here just to keep the rest of it protected. Okay, so what we'll have done now is taken the action down a little bit by removing the wooden half-degree shim, which both lifted it up and tilted it. So we will have changed the angle slightly, but I was pretty convinced that there was enough room in here to do that. We'll see that in a minute, but if you don't quite trust it now, you can always begin by setting a ruler on there like this, if you can reach to it, setting a ruler on, running right the way down to, actually let's have a look, this is looking like it's, that's weird, now can we get that in there? It's actually, if anything, that's lowered. That's not really very sensible, but hey. So we've added that. We've changed the, sorry, raised it. So this probably needs to go up a bit. I mean, if we're not sure about it, we can always put another one in. The downside about trying to do that is that if you're going to use an old string, you'll never get it easily through the thing. So it's kind of place where a reusable sacrificial string can be handy. So we'll use any old string that we've got to throw away, and then we can run it up here through the slot and into here. It's not really the ideal thing for it, but what we're just looking to do is to see that we can get the right action that we need out of it, to make sure that the neck geometry hasn't changed so much that we're stuck and stranded. Now also we have to remember that the the bridge action is going to rise up when we've got it floating, but right now this has kind of moved a bit, so let's have a little poke here. Okay, so we're up on its little legs, and that is about doable. I think we'll be alright. Yep. Well, that's how it sits with the resin flat surface and the shim taken out. And the only other thing that we could need to check at the same time, if we've got another spare string, that's the wrong way around, but let's use this spare G anyway. The other thing is just then to go ahead and check the other end. Probably should have done this the other way around. Let's do that. Trouble is, once you put a bend in it, then it's going to get difficult to thread through. We shall see. Let's see if we can get it through. No, up here, you idiot. Okay. Why is there such a long screw there? Oh, I don't understand this. What's gone on? One of these is 6 times longer than the others. I didn't think any of those were actual different sizes, but hey, let's take this one out. Swap it over for this one. Stuff you wish you'd seen when you put the bridge back together. Longer one, please. Is this one? Let's just try one thing just for the heck of it. See if this one's any longer or shorter than that one. No, the same. Long one there. Just about workable. The problem with these is that one's, wherever you put that one, it's almost too long and just starts to ride over or go over the hole as you get the saddle in position, the string through hole, so it's not ideal, but it's just about right. So I think this one may protrude just far enough to do the same. Okay, not too bad. Right, let's do it again. So let's go over the E. Let's try and thread this one. There we go. Sorry. Right, I will tidy this up in a minute because it's now bugging me. I just wanted to see if we were a million miles off target. The other thing is this is good for adjusting the neck alignment, which is currently wrong, so we'll be able to just do this with these two strings on here. Oh look, these are, oh, I didn't realise that these are easy lock tuners. I hadn't noticed that. That's not bad. Quite a nice little feature, but not something I tend to use anymore. I tend to leave it be and use them as conventional tuners. It's a nice idea, but I find it's not entirely reliable on the plain strings, so I tend to sort of avoid that. Okay, so we need to get the push this way. So push against. God, neighbours. Pull this way. Pull this way. Okay. So let's undo these. Undo this one a little bit. Let's do this one up. Just have a look at the alignment. That's still a fraction too much that way. That's spot on. And then let's do the other screws up. I mean, they're at, I don't know if you can't really see it, but look at the angle that's going in at. That one. It's rubbish. Not a very good example. Still. So what I'm going to do is just replace this with the hand screwdriver. And give it a couple of quick turns just to tighten it up. Hand tight. Yep. Right. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to bring these in a bit. We'll get them into a roughly start point. Okay. Yeah, that one's, yeah, this one must have wound in a bit, but they're not far off, I think. Give this one a bit of a turn. It's kind of, wow, that's really weird. Oh, this neck's very flexible, so it hasn't got anywhere near the bend on it yet. In fact, it's completely flat. So you wait and see when this, when the strings load this. So okay, test strings off. Then God, come on. Bin. Bin. Right, so next stage, I'll do the clear up. I'll hang this up, clear it up, sand out, and polish out the frets, and then we'll be back for the stringing and setting up of the tremolo. Oh, and while I'm at it, I'll also just quickly make a change, which I recommend, especially if you're using tremolo, not even a lot, but if you're using the tremolo at all, switch out your any metal string trees for tusk ones, because the metal grinds the strings as they go through and causes friction, and you get pinging, which can A, be annoying, and B, make you think it's your strings sticking in the nut, when in fact it's the metal scraping against the string tree. So I heartily recommend the fitting of the tusk nut, tusk, that string tree. There you go, perfect. Right, you know, for what, £5 extra, it's a small price to pay. Right, I'm going to hang you up there for a minute. See you afterwards when it's all tidy and polished. Okay, everything together, just time to string up. One of the things I'm going to do with this video is, I was watching the superb Italian luthier, guitar maker, musician, Beatles expert Galeazzo Frudua earlier today, because every now and then one of his videos comes into my attention, and I just love to watch him and his band, or him on his own, do a breakdown of you know, all the vocal parts on a particular great Beatles song. And he's a great, very talented guy, and he inspired me way back to with a, you know, his method for setting the range of tremolo movement on a guitar like this, and he simplified it massively, and it just kind of did it in a way that kind of hit right on the nail on the head for me. Now, in all the years that I've used it, I eventually kind of figured out something wrong with it, in inverted commas, wrong, and it was a sort of an aspect of it which it kind of annoyed me a little bit. And what it was is that his method is great for telling you how to predict and set for the correct range of movement when you operate the tremolo in fully floating mode, and it was brilliant for that. But the problem is that he didn't take his method, as he explained it, didn't take into account the way in which the action changes when you arrive at the range of movement you want. So if you, for example, were to get the playing action you want first and then set the tremolo, then what happens is the strings rise up, and you find that you end up with the correct range of action that you want, but the wrong, sorry, range of tremolo movement that you want, but basically the wrong action. And I found out the hard way, because I would then go and mess around with the individual saddles to bring the action down again to where I wanted it. And of course, I didn't kind of really get it at first, but when you do that and you reduce the height of the action of the saddles, you're reducing the tension as well on the strings, tension of the strings, and with the result that then reduced the pull on the springs, which meant that the tremolo sat lower and lower and lower, and eventually you could sort of, if you're not careful, you could kind of cancel yourself out. So I kind of realised there was a fatal flaw in that system, so I had to sort of try and think it through and figure out how, what was there a guide figure of how I would adjust, you know, where would I start with my action in order to end up with the action I wanted, which seemed a bit sort of hit and miss. Well, I was kind of lucky because I hit and it didn't miss. So I gauged 0.5 millimetre as the appropriate figure for an action, typically like I set. So when I got my, like now, you'll see that I'm going to stretch out all the strings, and then I'll set the playing action that I want across all strings as if we're using it as a hardtail, and then I'll take each of them down 0.5 mil, each saddle down 0.5 mil, or lower each string action 0.5 mil, and then we'll see that when we do the tremolo setting, the action will come back to pretty much exactly where I wanted it, which will be 1.5 on the last fret and 1.2 on the high E last fret. So so I'm thinking that when I come to do this, I'm going to explain it. I'll probably stop the camera and start again and just record a short video section that I will point Galeazzo towards, because it might be something that he could incorporate in future versions of his explanation, which, you know, like I say, is by miles the simplest explanation around, and I think it would really benefit from that extra detail on the interrelationship between the action and the tremolo float, because it's a shame to get it where you want it and then to sort of creep away from that ideal range, because you're having to reduce the action, ergo reduce it, or by at the same time reducing the tension. So we'll see. I'll just record it as if I'm speaking to him at that section. So as always, my standard sort of procedure is I'll do all the fret leveling with the tremolo nailed down, just treating the guitar as a hardtail, which is absolutely fine. And then we'll stretch out all the strings now and set the action, bearing in mind now that the action will be different because of the removal of the shim and the inclusion of the filler resin. I'll put in, make sure all the strings are all the way through. Yep. I'm just pulling these all, getting them located first, like that. And then we'll get an A starter note. Clank. Right, so we've got a bit of tuning done, and now I'm going to stretch the living daylights out of the strings. My pal Malcolm told me about how he went to see a band last week, and he said that the guitar players in the band were tuning every song, were out of tune after every song, and he kind of spoke to them afterwards and chatting about stuff, and he said, you know, if you want to keep your guitars really nicely in tune, he said, you know, you might want to get the nut slots right and get the slack all stretched out. You weren't interested. The action on this is incredibly light. So, okay, I think, I can't remember whether, I measured the drop, I took it down 1/2 mil and I counted how many turns it was on the thing, and I took everything down the same number of turns. I think that's what I did last time, but it should be exactly the same grub screws, same saddles, so we can do it on that basis. I'm going to dig out our special, what do you call it, that paper, post-it notes, and we'll get them ready for the Galeazzo Frudua method. I listened to how he pronounced his name today. It's pretty much exactly like that. there's no pings at all from the nut. Free flowing, linear tuning, progressive. Right, now because everything's moved, we've got the alignment good, nut is perfect. Let's just double check the playing action down here and we'll see how far we were off or where we are. Okay, so this has actually gone up some, which is fine. I tweaked it a bit, didn't I? So I was a bit wrong going that far with that one. So we'll take this one back down to our target 1.5, which is there. And then we want a little bit less on this one. Sticky. Just a bit over 1.5. So looking at these now with the setup the way it is, I would be thinking about the shorter screws on here myself, because these are going to stick up a bit now, but that can be changed over at a later date. But 6mm screws would be good for this. Fiddly, sorry, it's not no simple and quick. Okay, down with these. So we're just going to the start point action, and then we're going to make the adjustments from there. Way too high. So actually I was wrong. It was the bend of the neck that I hadn't recreated when I put those test strings on. That's fine. Amazing how much the loading of the neck changes its shape. Okay, we're probably on the mark there, and we'll see how this plays. That's just on the mark. Right, let's get another note. Flat. Just tweak these a bit more because they are pretty low. We get these exactly right before we do the adjustment for the tremolo. tiny adjustments really. There we are. That's as close as I'm going to get. Okay, the fritoir method. We need the tuna, we need the cable, tuna, cable, and post-it nuts. Yeah, I've got so many of them at the moment. Might need to get another pack. Right. We also need the tremolo. Right, pause and restart. Now what did I do? Oh, let me just think. What did I do for... Let's just work this out before we go on talking to Mr. Galliat. So we know we're on smack on 1.5. 1 and 1. 1 and 1 is pretty much what we'd need. 1. How do I do 1? Sorry. And 1. Yep. Okay, so 0.5 is a full turn. Alright, that's what we're going to call it for precision's sake. Okay, stop and restart. Right. Hello, back again, Mr. Galliazzo Frudua. This is just a little observation that might be useful. First of all, thank you. For years ago, I came across your tremolo setting method for Stratocasters, 2.6 screw and for Floyd Roses, and I thought your method was brilliant, and I use it from now on. I've used it ever since, and it's printed on my wall over there, so it's always worked for me. There's one small thing that I worked out after about 700 setups. I worked out a small problem with it that I thought I would just bring to your attention. You may have already figured it out, but it's kind of not in your instructions, and I thought maybe you could add this in. So what I realized is if you set your ideal playing action, which I have here, very low, and now I'm going to set in the range of tremolo movement using your method. What happens is, of course, you get the perfect range of tremolo movement with your method, but in doing so the action changes. And then what happens is you've got a higher action than you intended, or than your ideal action, which means you then start adjusting downwards with the saddles, which then reduces the tension on the springs, which causes the tremolo to sit back down. So when you eventually get to your ideal playing action, you've lost some of the movement, some of the range of movement in the tremolo. And I realised that was a problem for me with very low actions that I set for my customers. So I had to think about it and tried to work out. I couldn't work out the mathematics behind it, too clever for me, but I worked out a sort of rule of thumb, and I discovered that the distance on a setup like this, which is my typical setup, is 0.3 millimeters over the first fret, 1.5 at the last fret here, 1.2-ish if we can over here, and then a relief curve of a gap of about 0.25 maximum, or a bit less. That's my typical setup, and for that what I worked out using your method is that the raise when setting the tremolo for the full range of action on a 6 screw tremolo raises the action by approximately half, or nearly half a millimeter, which for my customers is a lot. So I had to figure out, okay, I'll take that half millimeter off first, then do the action adjust, get the tremolo adjust, and then lo and behold I end up with the right action for my customers. So my recommendation, maybe if you do want to add it to your method, is do your set up first of all hard-tailed with the claw in, which is a good start point anyway. Set up your perfect action, fret level or whatever you have to do, in my case, to get it right. And then as a hardtail, have the perfect action dialed in. Then take it down on every saddle 1/2 millimeter. And I've worked out that this is exactly one complete circuit on every grub screw, if I can get the thing in. So we're doing that on all of these. If I can just get it in. Come back. Sorry about this delay, but I'm doing it live as we speak. So I'm dropping the action now by exactly 1/2 millimeter, or 1 full turn, and that's going to be too low to play now, but that's fine because I know that once I've done this with the Galeazzo method, it's going to raise it back up by about 1/2 millimeter. I was going to say 1/2 inch, but 1/2 millimeter, and that will put it back in good shape where I want it to be. So there's my 1/2 mil. So now we do the Galeazzo method. You'll know this Galeazzo, so please ignore. Just, you know, it's only interesting to you from the point of view of seeing how this comes back up. So we want to just make sure that this is parallel to the thing. The plate is parallel to the body, and then we go for the input and we tune this up to pitch. Remember, now we've reduced the tension because of the lowering of the action. So I'm tuning to pitch with a tiny bit of paper, lifting up the plate to parallel. Okay, then we take this down from a G down to an E, if I can get it out of the way of the volume pot. And we stick in some blocks to the amount that we need to drop it to an E. Not just about have enough. That's a fraction flat of E. Close on E, right? And we retune. So tune it all. With all the paper still there. Okay, release, sharp, screwdriver, release the tremolo claw screws until we return to pitch, and then we will be where we need to be. If we can get access to the screws without the claw getting in the way, which is always a difficult problem. sharp, it's on A, needs to be a G. Bring it down. Now you'll notice, those of you who haven't done this before, as you do this, your tremolo claw will pitch up, going down from A, and the more you get closer you get to G, it'll rise up at the back, and that will indicate the correct amount of movement, which is a tone and a half on the G. G sharp, getting there. I wish they'd rethink that claw positioning, because that really does get in the way. G sharp, and we're coming down. Honestly, you can't get the right access to it, and it scuffs the screw. Coming down to G. Half a turn on each. There we go. So now what you've got is the tremolo where it should be for the range of movement you want, which is a tone and a half on G. It's not giving me a tone and a half. Why is that? Is this too tight or something? Might have to redo this section if that. Is this too heavy? That is pretty heavy. That's funny, it's not quite the range I expected. I don't know if this is too, if we press too far down on the front here. It doesn't look it. Anyway, truth is I would want a bit more height than that, so something's gone wrong, whether it's too many springs or not enough springs for this set of 10s. Don't know, it should work with 3. Did I go down the right amount? I might do this again. I'm a semitone short. Anyway, the point I was going to aim at is that we come down to here, and we are now at exactly the half mil that we wanted. And it stays in tune. I'm interested in this. Why was this? Was this too tight? Weird. Do you know that's moving? I've seen this before. This is moving the screws more than I would kind of want them to. A little bit. I wonder if they are too tightly done. Anyway, the principle is working. You can hear the springs creaking there. The problem is if it's not pulling enough on all 3 springs, and that when we go backwards we run out and they drop off. Sometimes you can get that, which means you have to change the number of springs really. But see, look, beautifully in tune. Check the relief, it's very flat still. Might take a tiny bit out of that. Anyway, I'm not going to adjust that any further. We could do it all again for another half a tone, but I think that will pretty much do. Apart from not quite getting the range I wanted going out, so I hope that the point I raised about the changing action has been useful. pull for. Lovely. I love how stable it is when you get the nut right and you get the stretch out of your strings. Actually, a bit close to the knob, as they say, but that's the way it is. Yeah, not quite the range I wanted. I'm sure I did that right. I'm sure I tuned down. Maybe I missed. Sometimes I miss the sharp here, and I go down, and it's actually down to E sharp, and I can't see the. When I do the first setup, it goes down to E sharp and I can't see it, and I think it's E. Anyway, okay, I'll cut for that section. And we're back. Right, so apart from that not being quite the range I'd intended, that's fine. Principle's right. I'd have to just lock it down and go through the whole process again, but I think it's enough to be getting on with. The only thing I've got to do now is to set the intonation. Pretty good. Now Al, if you find this is different for you, like last time, it'll be almost certainly, because you're different playing style, the intonation here, as you can see, depends entirely how you fret a note. I can make it go sharp, or on the note. So if you need to adjust it or tweak it, it'll be because your playing style, your fretting style is different from mine. Righty-ho, so that's the setup done, and this is now ready to go back in its baggie. Oh yeah, there's one more thing to do. I better dig out some tuner screws. What's the word? Not those are tuner screws. I need to dig out some, here they are, pickguard screws for the plate on the back. Thank you. Did this have a plate? It must have had a plate. Do you know what? Did it come with a plate? I don't think it did, because it's not here. It's not here. I don't think it did, but I'm going to put one in anyway for fun, since I've got a few. Offset no, offset no, offset yes. A bit on the bright white side, wrong offset. Typical. Square, offset no, square on. Well, square on. It's funny, none of these are geared up for your yonder vintage style thing. I'm sure it didn't. It can't have had a... Things like this I don't notice. Small deals. Did I take this off? I'll have to reconsult the video because it will show me, and if so I'll have to remember where I put it. That's the main thing. If it didn't come with one, I think it will go home without one, because none of these actually fit anyway. No, I'm sure it didn't come with one. Otherwise I would have parked it there. It's always something with Al's guitars. I'll either forget to send the strap back, or it will be missing the cover on the back. I'm pretty certain I didn't have it. But I will have to whiz back through the video from yesterday, which is a pain in the... But then I'll have to find it, which is even more pain in the... Amazing how you can't remember something. There we go. The thing is with this as well is you keep the... really only, it's a tone, half a tone, semitone short. Anyway, okay, this is going back in the baggie in case I can find the bleeding back straight. I'm pretty sure there wasn't one. There was a strap with it. Where did I put that? Here it is. Going to catch me out this time. Okay, that's that one done. Thanks for watching.